NASA is ready to launch its next mission to the moon. The Artemis 1 mission will send an uncrewed vehicle to deep space to get ready for future human missions. I'm pleased to talk today with Thomas Zurbuchen, who is head of science at NASA. Welcome back to space.com. What are you most excited about with Artemis 1?
Well, look, I mean, it's time to get going on this journey that is Artemis, right? And it's really the beginning of that journey. So I'm excited to go on the path. Artemis 1, of course, is a test flight. So it's risky. It has a number of technologies we're trying for the first time. But on this particular flight, what I'm excited about really is to go to the moon. Of course, there's science we can talk about that is really exciting. But for me, it's really the start of this new journey.
Well, you're anticipating our next question, which is how will Artemis 1 help with lunar science and exploration?
Well, look, Artemis 1 and the entire Artemis program is really focused on lunar science in many ways. And what's really important to recognize is the moon we're going to is very different than the moon that we understood when we left during the Apollo program. We go to a moon that has a water cycle. We go to a moon that we know has information about the exact dates, kind of the age of our solar system and kind of major events like the Grand Bombardment. And we have a kind of processes that we're studying there that we know shape the surface of Mercury and other planets elsewhere in the solar system, but also in systems around. So the first challenge really we're going after in the first 3 flights of Artemis, if you want scientifically, is really the water cycle. And this Artemis 1 has 2 payloads, Luna HMAP and others, kind of focused on that water cycle, mapping water in the polar regions and elsewhere. And so for me, that's what I would say is the most exciting. There's other payloads focused on life in deep space, which, as you know, we haven't really done extended life in deep space. And so there's experiments for that also.
That's wonderful. And then is there anything in particular that you would like to learn from Artemis 1, from these various experiments, or even from the Artemis program more generally?
Well, I mean, so first of all, the experiments that we're bringing here in these secondary payloads, I mean, some of them are frankly crazy. So there's a Japanese-built experiment, and by the way, crazy in a positive sense, right? Because it's stretching our imagination. But so there's a Japanese-built lander that will crash onto the surface of the moon and try to survive using technologies for that. If that works, that has huge implications as to how we can deliver things, kind of small payloads on other planetary bodies. The mapping of the water that we already talked about is really critical. One experiment that I really like is this biological experiment that has 4 types of life, from fungi to algae and, seeds. And, looking at that in deep space with different radiation, because of the fact that we're on the outside of the protecting magnetic shield, we have very different radiation. And those experiments will really measure kind of everything from changes in DNA to really radiation damage in there in a specific tailored set of experiments. And so I'm really looking forward to that experiment coming back and being able for analysis in our labs.
Okay. And then how will the Artemis program get NASA and its partners ready for Mars?
So the Artemis program, of course, is to do sustainable exploration on the moon, but as you said, to really turn around and look at Mars as a destination. And both the programs that we have, the flight systems, the rockets, but also the technologies we're using, again, focused on radiation. And then, of course, the gateway that we're going to launch in 24 are all targeted to both learn to explore the moon and also Mars. One of the things that happened in the last couple months is that the decadal in planetary science came out and really prioritized a number of important topics in lunar science as the highest priority topics. And so for us, focused on that with an eye to Mars is really one of the things we as a science community are really excited about.
Well, thank you so much for your time. And so that was Thomas Zurbuchen, who is head of science over at NASA. And please follow us here at space.com for continuing coverage of Artemis 1.